Okay guys, today we're going to do 4-4 simplifying fractions. And here's a little math humor for you. You can take a minute and read that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is equivalent fractions. Equivalent fractions just is exactly how it sounds. It's fractions that are equal to each other. Equal, equivalent. Okay, so if you have 3/4 right here on number 1, in order to make an equivalent fraction, meaning a fraction that is the same value, what you can do, normally actually I'm going to write it right here. You're either going to multiply or divide. It doesn't matter, except for when it's like 3/4, if you divide, you can't really get smaller, okay, because nothing will divide into both of those. But what you do is you multiply by the same number. So you can multiply by 2. Okay, so 3 times 2 is 6, 4 times 2 is 8. That is the same exact thing. 6, if you cut a pie into 8 pieces and eat 6 of them, that's the same as if you cut it into 4 pieces and eat 3 of them. It's the exact same thing. Okay, and you can multiply it by anything you want. You could do 3/4 times 10 if you wanted. Okay, so then it would be 30/40. It's the exact same thing. You have to know that those are the exact same thing. All right, normally it'll say write 3 equivalent fractions. I just do times 2, 3, and 4. So it'd be 3/4. You take the numerator and the denominator by 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 3 is 12. So 9/12, 30/40, and 6/8, along with 3/4. These are all equivalent. They're the exact same fraction. They're just written in different ways. You could go all the way up. You could multiply it by 1,000,000 or 2,000,000, whatever you wanted. Okay, just make it easy though. All right, so on number 2, it's the same thing. You can either multiply, on this one you can multiply or divide. Okay, so we could multiply by 2, multiply by 2, multiply by 2. 4 times 2 is 8, 12 times 2 is 24. That is the same thing. Or you could do 4/12 and you could divide by 2. And that's going to give you 2/6, which is also the same thing. You could also divide 4 by 12, which we'll show you in a minute, by 4, because that's the greatest common factor. 4 goes into both of these, so it's going to reduce it all the way to 1/3. Whoops, that 3 looks a little funny. Okay, so you're reducing it all the way to 1/3. So again, 1/3, 2/6, 8/24, 4/12 are all the exact same. They're all equivalent. Okay, so if you had 1/5, try this on your own. Pause the video, come up with 3. See if you can come up with 3. Okay, again, you might multiply by 2, someone else might multiply by 5. It does not matter. I'm going to multiply by 2, so we get 2/10. And if I multiply by 3, I'd get 3/15. If I multiply by 4, I'd get 4/20. And so on. Okay, those are equivalent fractions. They're all the same. Okay, so simplest form is a little different, and that simplest forms means you have to reduce it as much as possible. Okay, so you have to reduce would be another way to say it. To get it in simplest form, that means divide it. These you only divide, you do not multiply. Simplest forms means you divide it to the smallest it can be. So you try to find the greatest common factor, okay, of 8 and 12. You don't have to. You can just pick a number that goes into both. So for example, you could say, okay, they're both even. I know 2 is going to go into both of these. So I'm going to divide both by 2, and I'll get 4/12. This is the same number, the same one in it. Oh, I'm sorry, not 4/12. 4/6. Let me erase that real quick, because that, whoops, go away. Let me erase that real quick. It is not that. It is, there we go. Okay, so 12 divided by 2 is 6, so you can get 4 6, but you can still reduce this more, so it is not in simplest form. So you divide by 2 again, because 2 goes into both of them again. It has to be the same number. 4 divided by 2 is 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3, so 2/3 is what you would reduce that to. Now from the beginning, if you'd used 4, because that's your greatest common factor, then you would do 8 divided by 4 is 2, 12 divided by 4 is 3, and you'd have been done. You wouldn't have to do 2 steps, but it doesn't matter. You want to try to find the greatest common factor. It makes it easier, okay? But if you can't come up with it, then you can just find any factor to help, okay? So 6/8, if we're going to reduce that, the only thing that goes into both of these numbers is 2, so that's our greatest common factor. So that's going to equal 3/4. And you're done with that one. Okay? So now, like if we get to number 6, and now we're going to throw variables in there, of course. So now you can think, there's a few different ways to think about this. You can think, well, I'm going to divide by y, because there's a y on both sides. I think that gets a little confusing. All you need to do is remember if you have 5 over 5, that equals 1. So if you have b over b, that equals 1. So these y over y just becomes 1, or you can think it's canceled out. Okay, so you're just left with x on the bottom, but remember there's really an actual 1 in front of these, so it's really 1 over x. And yes, that's important that you have the 1. You cannot just write x. There's a difference between 1 over x and just x, because that would mean x is on the top. Okay, moving on. We'll do a few more of those. So if you have 3ab squared over 12ac, the first thing you want to reduce is just reduce the fraction, reduce the numbers. Okay, so 3 goes into both of these. We're going to divide by 3, so we have 1/4. You just do that normally. And then let's look at what we have. We have an a, and then we have 2 b's, and then we have an a and a c. So what can cancel out here? Our a's can cancel, or they just become 1, which means we don't have to write it. So this becomes 1b squared over 4c, or you can just put b squared over 4c. I'll take either one. It doesn't matter. You don't have to put that 1 in there, but you can. So if we're just looking at a problem like this, we know right away, okay, my b's are going to cancel. I'm left with 1 on the top. That's very important. That's why I've done 2 of them so far. Okay, it's very important that you leave that 1 on the top. Oops. Again, I messed up again. Let me get my eraser. This should not be a b. Our b's canceled, remember? So it should be a c. Okay, a and c is what's on the bottom, and that's a times c. Okay, moving on, 2 over 6. So again, we reduce our fraction. Okay, 2 goes into both of those. Divide by 2 to get 1. Divide by 2 to get 3 on the bottom. And now we have m, n, and then over m. So our m's are going to cancel. We're just left with n on the top. You could leave it like that, or you could make it just n over 3. It doesn't matter. You can do either one. Okay? Okay, so this one, again, we need to reduce the 24 over 8. Well, this is just a division problem, 24 divided by 8. Remember, fractions are just division problems. Okay, well, we know 8 goes into 24, so we can divide by 8. If you can't think of that, you can divide by 2 or divide by 4, whatever you think of, and then you just have to do it again. So 8 goes into 24 3 times, and then 8 goes into 8 once. You do not have to write that one, but it'll just kind of help for now. And then we have 2 x's on the top and a y, and 1 x on the bottom and a y. So we're going to cancel one of the x's and one of the y's, and we're left with 3x. If you want to put 3x over 1, that's fine, but you don't have to. You don't have to put the 1 on the bottom, but you would have to put it on the top, depending. Okay? And that is it.